The final VR for Phantasmal Steed Liberation is here. And with it, some very interesting support cards.
Stand up! Vanguard!
Hey Cardfighters, welcome back to another Cardfight update, and as we talked about in the previous Cardfight update, today, Friday, was going to be the day that we're going to get the reveal of the last VR for Phantasmal Steed Liberation, and that would be the one for Dark Irregulars. And with that, as I predicted, we also got some extra cards to be revealed with it to include and also explain how the card interacts with the engine of the current set. And it looks to be a complete new take on how Dark Irregulars is gonna play, but at the same time, it does combine very well with Dentarian, as well as No Life King, as well as all the other support cards that we got in the previous sets with Dark Irregulars. So overall, it's gonna be looking to be a very interesting support. So without further ado, let's jump right into these three new cards and explain how they work and what they actually mean for the clan in general. So we're gonna start off with a familiar face back from the G era, as this was one of the latest inclusion for Dark Irregulars, and that is Weretiger Jager. And yeah, the artwork isn't as great as it ever has been, but its skill is still very interesting, as its skills is auto. When it is retired from the rearguard circle or guardian circle, cost counter +1 and put this card into your soul. So when it's retired by one of your opponent's effect, or that you guard with it, and after the guard step it's gonna be retired, you can counter +1 and put it into the soul. So it helps with soul charging in that kind of sense. Might be looking weird why it also works from the rearguard circle, but that's because of the VR that can retire your own stuff as well as stuff from your opponent, so it does synergize with that. And it helps you to fill the soul, because the reason why it's a countless to put himself in the soul is not specifically to add for the soul count, it does with that, but it's because of its second ability, and that's auto soul. When your opponent's rearguard is retired by your card effect, cost, bind this card, and draw a card. So by binding it from your soul, you can draw a card. So by combining two skills, you can actually have a more consistent draw engine for a counterblast. So it's pretty neat in that sense. However, if you put it into soul with any other effect, then you can get some free drawing with the help of retiring stuff. And we already saw a card 1 or 2 weeks ago for Dark Irregulars, that's Emblem Master, as that can put multiple copies of the same unit from your rearguard circle into the soul. So you can use for one, so with one counterblast, you could basically put 3 copies of him into your soul and then use those 3 copies to draw 3 cards. So effectively, you're drawing 3 cards for one counterblast. That's pretty good, and it also synergizes with your new VR Vanguard, as that also searches cards from your deck and put them into your soul with multiple copies. So you can use this card as a new draw engine for the deck itself. So that's pretty neat, as the old Weretiger Jager was also a draw engine card. This is once again a new version of the draw engine. So overall, a pretty interesting card in that sense. Now we also got a new grade 2, and that is Variance Hardlag. And its skill is auto rearguard circle when placed. If your soul has 3 or more cards with different card names, and they have 3 or more cards with the same card name, until the end of turn, when your opponent would call cards from his or her hand to the guardian circle, he or she must call 3 or more at the same time. So the wording might confuse you a little bit, but how it actually works is you need to have 3 different cards in your soul, and all those 3 different cards need to have 3 or more copies of that card. So you need to have 3 sets of 3 cards in your soul, and that might be a little bit hard to attain, but with card like Emblem Master, as well as a lot of excess soul charging, as well as the new VR that we're going to talk about after this card, this isn't really that hard to come by, to get that condition off. So probably on your 4th turn, you can fulfill this condition quite effectively and consistently. And The 3 cards guard skill is pretty heavy, as we've seen with Spilling Valiant that has a similar skill for the entire turn, and this is also for the entire turn. And we know that Dark Irregulars can multi-attack with cards like NLK as well as Master 5th Element. Also, when you fulfill this condition, you have at least 9 cards in your soul, and that's only with this specific card. You also have a lot of gen cards in your soul as well. Which means you probably can also fulfill the 20 cards in soul condition for Hope on Dump. And if you combine this card with Hope on Dump, you basically won the game. As they need to guard, each time that they want to guard, they need to put down exactly 20k shield. But while they do that, they also need to guard with 3 or more cards. So that means they need to fulfill both conditions while they want to guard. So that if they want to guard for 20k or at least 1 attack, they need to put at least 2 grade 1s and maybe a grade 3 with 0 shield on the field, or 2 grade 1s and a perfect guard that allows for 20k, or they can put 2 5k guards and a 10k guard, or a 0 guard, 5k guard and 15k guard, or 2 0 guards and a 20k guard. There are some options for that, but super limited. And don't forget, when you attack with maybe an 80k attack, they need to guard with intervals of 20k shield, and each of those intervals need to be placed with 3 cards. Yes, they can perfect guard 1, but how many perfect guards do they have available? And when you do this in a combination with Master 5th or an NLK, there's going to be 4, 5, 6 attacks, and that is basically game. So yeah, this is an insane card with the new engine and with Hope on Dump. Those cards are gonna be insane. If you fulfill that condition, if you can make that dream happening, yeah, you basically won the game. So this is pretty good, in my opinion. Yes, it has some limitation and you need to work with the engine, so we have to see how consistent it is. But if we can pull it off, this is nuts. It's pretty insane if you ask me. But now let's take a look how we can use Weretiger Jager as well as Variant's Hardlag at a more effective way, because we're not going to talk about the VR, and the VR makes a lot more sense with cards like Emblem Master and these 2 new cards. And that's because their new VR is Demonic Deep Phantasm Emperor Brutus, and it got 2 skills. His first skill is Act on Vanguard Circle once per turn, cost counter +1. Look at all of your deck. Search for up to 3 cards with the same card name and reveal them. And if your soul has a card with the same card name as those cards, put a card from among the revealed cards into your hand and put the rest into your soul. Shuffle your deck. So just like Emblem Master, you can search for multiple copies and put them into your soul. But there's something interesting to note about this skill. For 1 counterblast, you can search for 3 cards, and they all need to have the same name. So when you're gonna rely on these skills, you're probably gonna run 3 off and 4 offs of a lot of cards. But you can search out 3 copies of any card that you like. And if you have it in soul, you can put 1 to hand. But you can just search for a card you don't have in soul, so you can soul charge all 3 of them, because all of the remaining cards will go to the soul, not to deck or not whatsoever. But if you have 1 in soul, you can add it to hand. So maybe you have a specific good card that you want to have in your hand, maybe a right target or something else, you can search for that. But for anything else, you can just fill your soul with specific cards very fast. So with something like Weretiger Jager, if you don't have a copy in your soul, use the skill and put 3 copies right into your soul without any hic. You can also combine that with something like Frolic Claws, as you can put 3 Frolic Claws right in your soul without problem, and your Vanguard will get 30k at the same time. Those kinds of things you can do while using its skill. So there are 2 different ways that you can use this skill, just by adding 1 to hand, putting 2 to soul, or just soul charging 3 specific cards immediately into your soul. So effective soul charging, precise soul charging while gaining cards in hand at the same time. It's a pretty good skill for only 1 counterblast. But then we get the second ability, and it's Auto Vanguard Circle. When it attacks, if your soul has 2 or more grade 3, choose one of your or your opponent's rear guards, retire it, and this card gets the power and critical of that unit until the end of the battle. Added amount is included. So when it attacks, you can retire 1 unit that's on the field. And this synergizes with Weretiger Jager, as it basically puts it in. You can now use its skill to counter +1 and put it into the soul to then bind it later in the game to get them free draw. So you can do it like that. But you can also keep it as a control option against your opponent. And the fun fact is, it synergizes with Protect 2 and Force 2, as both those new markers also gain the added bonus of this marker during your opponent's turn. So if if you're against a Force 2 user, you get 2 crits onto your Vanguard while also gaining the power of that unit. And when you're up against Protect 2, you also gain that extra power that they gain during your turn because the 5k power of the marker is active during your turn. So it synergizes with those markers as well. But besides that, there are some other interesting interactions you can do with this card, as you can retire a unit. But we have in this set a new grade 1 that when you have 2 or 3 copies of her into your soul, she cannot be retired by effects. And she does gain 10k if I remember correctly. And she's a 7k body, so she's a 17 grade 1. So you can basically use her as a target, kill her off, gain 70k on your Vanguard, but your unit doesn't die. So when you're up against a clan that has no field, maybe against the new Pale Moon Silverthorns, you can use this tactic to always have a target to gain some significant power, but at the same time don't lose units because you don't minus on it. So there are some interesting things. Also, what's great about it is the skill is free. So you can retire and gain power as well as crits onto your Vanguard for free. And that means you have the most easiest countercharge engine now available with this Vanguard, because we have a grade 2 from the previous set that has the skill when a unit of your opponent's field is retired, once per turn countercharge 1. So every time when your Vanguard attacks, you countercharge 1. That's a pretty good countercharge engine if you ask me. And it also synergizes with NOK in a sense, because you can use NOK, attack with it, restand into this thing, and then attack with this thing, and you can now snipe something from your Vanguard, from your opponent, and gain an extra critical and power. And NOK also gives an extra critical, so this thing attacks for 3 crits. That's some interesting playability that you can do with this card. So there are different ways. You can use it as a setup tool for the whole tactic to have multiple copies in your soul. So you can go into a Hope on Dump as well as a Variance Hardlag combo. Or you can use it as a control options and as well as a countercharge engine. But you can also use it as a pressure tool together with NOK. So overall, this card opens up a lot of playability. And that's basically all the cards that we got for Dark Irregulars. They are some very interesting bunch, and also with the cards that were revealed with the other rarities that we've seen in the past few weeks, I must say their strategy and what they're gonna do is a very interesting approach. They do have some very interesting gimmicks in how they play. They do not have a very high aggressive power card that we've seen with the other clans in this set. But it doesn't take away in the fact that they are underpowered in any sense. I mean, the support that they got in this set is very interesting. They do have a very solid endgame strategy with Variance Hardlag and Hope on Dump. Those guard restrictions those cards can dish out are insane. And with the new VR, they do have some different engines that they can try to tag in with their other archetypes, as they have a good solid soul charge engine, because all the new cards are selective soul charging. And selective soul charging is one of the more dangerous things, because you can easily put 10 cards from your deck that aren't triggers right into your soul. That's deck fitting that we haven't seen in the likes of Standard at this rate. So yes, they don't get a lot of power, and yes, they might not do some very insane multi-attacking or interesting stuff, but the fact that you're changing your deck in like 50 to 60, 70% trigger range is, I think, one of the more dangerous things that we have seen in Standard, besides the deck manipulation that we had with Oracle Think Tank. So I must address, don't sleep on these cards. These things can look pretty sick. Plus all the crazy interactions that we can do, like the grade 1 that's indestructible, but while at the same time keep using her as a discard fodder for your VR to gain 70k and extra crit onto that thing. For those kinds of things, we have to wait until the entire set is revealed and see what Dark Irregulars has to showcase. But at that time, I'm gonna do a full cover on a spotlight on this build, because I am seeing some good potential in this build. Because there's one big difference between this new support and the one that we got for Royal Paladin and Shadow Paladin. They aren't relying on only one single card, because without Blast the Blade or Blast the Dark, that whole engine isn't gonna do anything. So yeah, that's basically everything for today's Cardfight update. There were some interesting reveals for the latest cards for Dark Irregulars. Might not be your cup of tea in the way that this card is functioning and that it is a VR in its own take. But let me know in the comments down below what your opinion is about this card and the new support that we're going to get for Dark Irregulars. Are you very excited about it, or are you more hoping to get something else? So let me know in the comments down below all your thoughts and opinions, and let the discussion going, as this set for Phantasmal Steed Restoration is nearing its closing chapters, but that doesn't mean that there isn't more exciting news on the horizon, as we still got a bunch more cards to be revealed for this set. As always, I want to thank my supporters over at Patreon for making this video possible and everything that's happening on the channel possible. And if you too want to support the channel and everything that's happening on the channel, then head over to patreon.com/Vanguard Insider and become a Patreon today. But with that said, I'm Mr. Time Leap, and I see you guys in the next one.